Support for Consider This is provided by Sequent Planning, an SEC-registered investment advisor, helping people make informed retirement income decisions. Additional information is available at sequentomaha.com.
From the campus of the University of Nebraska at Omaha. Consider This, a program of issues and information behind today's news.
Hi everyone, I'm Kathy Wyatt. Welcome to this week's edition of Consider This. Our topic, opera in America. Joining us to talk more about it are Opera Omaha's Kurt Howard. Kurt is the producing director. Lauren Medici, director of engagement programs, and Kate Pomranke. Kate is a Holland Community Opera Fellow. Thank you all so much for being here and welcome.
Thank you for having us here, Kathy.
You bet. Kurt, I'm going to start with you.
Great.
What is opera?
Well, it's something different to everyone who works in it or experiences it. But we like to think of it as the ultimate immersive art form. It involves theater, acting, singing, music, dance, theater craft, video, all of the elements combined in a live performance that's being done. But the difference for that a lot has to do with that it's focused on its music, that music is not a secondary nature to it, but woven into it completely. Okay,
and operas can be sung in foreign languages,
yes,
right?
Yes.
What are the most common?
The most common is Italian, which is the root home birthplace of opera. But it's also moved into many German texts, many French texts. And actually over the last 20 years, a lot of American works have been created. So we see it in English now also. But the challenge is English isn't really a singable language. So there's challenges with that. But the romantic languages really flow through the voice, such as French and Italian.
Okay, so Kurt, for those people who have never been to an opera and they're hearing you talk about all this foreign language stuff, how will they be able to understand what's actually happening on stage?
Certainly. First, we advise you get there a little bit early to read the synopsis or look at it online at the synopsis, because the music in an opera can carry you through with an understanding of the basic plot points. But if you want the specific understanding of what words are being said, we always project super titles over the top of the stage. So like subtitles on a TV, those English translations come in and incorporate the poetry of the language translated into English poetry as well, so that you get a sense of the nuances of the language on a word-by-word basis.
Fantastic. Tell us about the very first opera.
The very first opera was created by a group of men in Florence who wanted to recreate the old Greek drama style, which was a combination of theater and singing. And so they created a piece called Daphne, based on a classic myth story, and they were done in salon-type atmospheres of ensembles in people's homes or in courts, that they were designed for those very intimate experiences, but that combination of singing and acting.
Okay, and the oldest opera still performed today?
So that's by Claudio Monteverdi, and it's called L'Orfeo, and it was composed way back long ago in the 1700s. Actually 1607 is when it was created, but that's still one that's regularly performed.
Okay, now when we talk North America, you've got some things that you'd like to interject here when it comes to operas, specific ones.
Certainly. So we often think of American opera as being U.S., and so the first one, as you mentioned, was in South Carolina, a piece called Flora, and that was back in 1735. But the true North American first opera was in 1711 in Mexico City, composed by a resident of Mexico City. So our first opera in North America was actually Spanish language.
Wow, that's kind of fascinating. And Lauren, when we talk performers, I mean, this isn't any easy stunt, right? When we were talking with Kurt earlier and he was telling us all the things that are involved when it comes to opera. Performers, pretty special people. Tell us about what it takes to be a performer in an opera.
Yeah, A lot of opera singers have gone through years and years of training, and their voice is really their instrument, and it's very well trained. And they've spent years singing and honing that skill and that craft, but also they're singing actors. With that language barrier that we talked about, they really have to be able to tell the story and move the story forward with their voice, but also with their actions and with facial expressions and how they really inhibit those characters. So they have a lot of work to do when they're up there on the stage.
And many cities have an opera company, right, where these folks can go and perform. Omaha, no exception. Tell us about Opera Omaha.
Yeah, so when people think of Opera Omaha, those who are familiar with us might think of the operas that we do and produce and perform on the stage at the Orpheum Theater. We just closed Madama Butterfly, but really Opera Omaha is so much more than that. We have our Holland Community Opera Fellowship program that really brings opera to all different parts of the Omaha community, and we're really taking opera off the stage. But we also have our One Festival that's in the spring that really highlights and shows the full spectrum of opera. We have 2 operas that are part of that festival, but then we also have concerts events and late night events and free programming, and there's other types of events that are part of that festival that really show all of the different types of art and artists and people who are making and creating opera in America right now.
And there's an anniversary that you're talking about too, Lauren. What's that?
Yeah, so Opera Omaha was founded in 1958, but we are actually this season celebrating 50 years of being a professional opera company. And most recently, the mayor of Omaha proclaimed November 1st was Opera Omaha Day. So we got our special day this year, and that's really exciting.
Well, I was going to say, I mean, that just doesn't happen every day. So tell us what was going on, especially in the office, and I'm sure everything was all abuzz, right? To have the mayor do something like that.
Yeah, it was really exciting, and that was in conjunction with, we also hosted Opera America here in Omaha at the beginning of November to celebrate their on 50 years of the founding of Opera America, and Opera Omaha was one of the founding member companies of Opera America. So as part of that, we were really thinking about our history and how could we celebrate, and we approached the mayor, and we were really happy that in acknowledgement of all of the work that we do on the stage and off the stage, that we got our own day.
Wow. Now you mentioned this fellowship. It's really at the heart of your strategic vision, right?
It absolutely
so
is.
Making it obviously very important. Tell us a little bit more about that fellowship, and when you do that, we're going to put something up on the screen for our viewers so that they can kind of follow along.
Yeah, absolutely. So the fellowship program is really at the center of our strategic plan in the that it reaches all of our different kind of core tenets that we have about being accessible and really having innovative programming, expanding our community footprint and where we can be and who we're reaching in the community, while also being that artistic innovation is part of it as well. So the fellowship started 2.5 years ago, and it's the Holland Community Opera Fellowship, and it's really about engaging with different parts of our community and different folks who might not have met Opera Omaha before or know about us. And it's fulfilling community needs for creativity and artistry and really being a resource. We're about empowering the individuals in the communities and the partners that we work with to find their own voice as well as share their own stories. We're really about creating different types of opportunities to experience this art form, to experience opera, and for people to find their own creative spark. It absolutely expands the work that we do at Opera Omaha just geographically, of being in different parts of the city, but also in the sense of expanding how we see opera and what work we're doing. And it diversifies our audiences and our participants and the people who feel like they're part of Opera Omaha.
Yeah, and extraordinary. It's no easy task, though, when you talk about introducing something like this, especially something that is community driven. That is a very big deal, and it takes an awful lot of work. And you said 2.5 years ago. So what was happening just prior to that time? In other words, you're kind of putting together the foundation of what we now know as the fellowship, but how did all of that really get started?
Yeah, it really got started from it being a core tenet of the strategic plan going forward and getting the buy-in from the very highest levels and grassroots level of this is something that we want to commit to and that we want to do. And we knew that we wanted to be accessible and a vibrant community partner and really truly a resource to the community in a creative and artistic way. And we could only do that work by really partnering in a true and reciprocal sense with the community. And in order to do that, we needed to have artists who are here with us full time to do this community-based and community engaged work. All of the work that we do as part of the fellowship is really responsive to our partner needs and how can we help them reach their own goals with programming that we develop collaboratively, that we develop together, and with our artists who are here as our fellows doing that work. It's a really different model, especially in the opera world. We're the first that at least we know of in the United States who are doing a program in this type of way, but it's really about that philosophy at the base of it, that we have to work with our community and for our community if we really want to be accessible and relevant and innovative. Those are how we have to change the way we do things.
So I'm curious in listening to you here, Opera Omaha, kind of a household name, right? When this was introduced and word got out, did you actually have potential partners coming to you, or did you find that you were having to do, because I would imagine, I mean, exciting stuff, right?
Yeah.
So with whom are you partnering, and how did you find them?
So we have over 40 community partners who are part of the fellowship program, and when we started, it was a lot of going out and reaching out to potential partners and potential folks we could work with. Either we have a community artist panel that really helps us guide and steer the fellowship, and they helped us through a series of a lot of meetings and interviews, really identify priority community needs, and then also identify for us partners who are working in those issue areas and who are doing great work in those areas that might want us to come along. And so we did a lot of work in the first couple of years of developing and establishing those relationships with all of those community partners. And now, in the last year or so, what's been really great is it's come the other way. Now a lot more people have heard about the work that we're doing. They're partnered with one of our partners and reach out to us because they're really interested about partnering with us and working with collaboratively.
Okay, and Kate, at the heart of a fellowship, is a fellow, right? And you are one of those. How were you introduced to Opera Omaha?
So I actually grew up in Northwest Iowa, so I knew about Opera Omaha, and after I graduated with my master's degree, I discovered the program online while I was looking for opportunities to audition and to sing, and I thought it looked especially unique because of because of the nature of community work and the nature of working with people in a city in a different way than other companies were doing. So it really interested me because after I graduated from my master's degree, I was working for a charities organization, and I really loved working with the people, and I loved working in different communities and in different neighborhoods, and I found a passion for that even though I kind of stumbled into that position. So when I found the position at Opera Omaha, I really realized that it mended my two passions of classical music and singing, along with working in a community and working with people.
And I think for folks to really understand what we mean by work, I want to go back to your master's degree, right?
Okay.
And talk about the educational piece in all of this. You don't just arrive on a stage. You don't just arrive into the community. You had to work really hard to get where you are. Talk about, just briefly, what it takes to get a master's in something like this.
Yeah, so the typical opera singer track is starting with an undergraduate degree and then going on to audition for graduate degree programs, and some singers also go on to get a doctoral degree as well, or a PhD. But I just received a master's so far, so that's the typical track. It usually takes anywhere from 6 to 10 years to get this training. And while a singer is in those programs, they usually have very intense vocal lessons, pedagogy classes, opera literature classes, while also performing in shows and recitals. So it's a very intense but rewarding educational experience.
When did you know this is what you wanted to do?
I had a teacher really push me to this, and I thought it was the craziest thing in the world at the time. You know, I was into musical theater and choir in high school, and then I went on to study music in college, and I had a teacher say to me that I was going to sing opera. And I said, I don't think I'm going to sing opera. I think you're wrong. But I actually ended up doing that. Once I was on the stage and working in the environment, I fell in love, and I haven't gone back since.
So what did they see in you that made them think that this was going to be your track?
I think not only my voice, but my interest in, as Kurt was saying before, the immersive artistic experience. It really combines a variety of art forms, and I enjoyed all art and all music, so I think that was something that was telling as well.
Okay, and you're not doing this alone. There are other fellows. We're going to put their photos up for our viewers, and if you could just kind of talk about those with whom you're working.
Yeah, so I am currently working with Gwenna Fairchild-Taylor, Jared Hiscock, and Caitlin Zardetto.
Okay.
And they are 3 new fellows this year, and I love working with them. But I also worked with Jessica Johnson-Brock and Shabral Williams last year, who were 2 of my greatest mentors. They taught me a lot, and I'm very thankful for that. And you know, we are all singers, we are all trained singers, but we all have a passion for community work and people and making this industry and this art form relevant and accessible for everyone.
Okay, I want to talk a little bit about a day in your life. So Lauren did a great job of talking about the fellowship. Now you bring it to life for us and tell us really, what does that entail from where you sit?
Well, every day is a little different, but it may include teaching or facilitating a workshop with one of our partners. So for example, I just finished a 6-week program at Micah House in Council Bluffs, and we specifically worked in the single women's unit. So I was there twice a week for 90 minutes on Tuesday and Thursday evenings. But I also receive coachings, and I rehearse and I practice, and sometimes I have the opportunity to perform in a recital some days. And I also facilitate at a variety of other partnerships and at other organizations. So for example, on Wednesdays, I'm at Nelson Mandela Elementary School working with the Meerkat Melodies, which is an after-school choir program. We also did an opera creative class for the students at Nelson Mandela Elementary School in the spring. So it just kind of depends on the day. I'm usually in the community or rehearsing or curriculum planning or performing in some sort of capacity.
Talk about the reaction from, because it's much different to be on stage, right, in an opera house performing versus going to, right, some of the places that you've mentioned. So talk about the reaction that you're getting from folks in the community.
Yeah, so something that's really unique about the program here at Opera Omaha is that we build relationships first. That is the first and foremost step that we take with our partnerships in the community. So I may go into a facility or an organization and just talk about opera or talk about creativity or talk about art before I sing. And that's something that's very unique about our program, and I find that it's actually quite impactful, because once we build that relationship and we gain trust with people in different communities and they ask for it, it's not something that we are presenting. It's wanted because of that trust and that relationship. So it's very powerful, because when we are asked to sing and we do sing, the reaction is so magical because we already have that relationship.
Yeah, I can't imagine when I go to performances, you know, the people on stage are just, they're so far away, and you think, oh, I wonder what they really do in their, you know, their lives when they're not on stage, and you're right there for people.
Yeah.
I mean, you're feet away from them, and you're talking, and then all of a sudden you open your mouth and your voice is, I mean, and I'm sure it's beautiful, right? And they're probably just in awe that they are so close to you and they don't have to wonder. You're right there. Have you ever had a question thrown at you that you were thinking, whoa, where did that come from? Maybe most interesting question that you get from an audience, or that you've had from an audience member?
You know, a really fun one that I get often from especially children that we work with is, how is your voice so loud? Or why is your voice so big? You know, and it's just a lot of awe and wonder, especially once they already know us, because my speaking voice is so different. So that's probably my favorite, is the children's reaction and questions about, how do you make your voice vibrate like that or shake like that, and why is it so big? It's just a lot of fun.
What do you believe, Kate, is the most misunderstood thing about opera, especially having had now the relationships that you've had in the community? Maybe there's one common misunderstood, but just something that, that you would believe to be not quite right, and you want to clarify it.
Yeah, there's a stigma that opera is for a certain type of audience and a certain type of people that may have a lot of money, or that opera is a really high form of art, and it's really not. It's for everyone, and that's what I love so much about my job, and I love so much about the program at Opera Omaha, is that we're breaking that stigma, and it's really important to do that, because it is for everyone. It's a beautiful art form that everyone should be enjoying, and everyone should be invited.
Okay, if we were to find you 10 years from now, Kate, where would that be?
That's a great question. I'm not really sure. I would like to still be singing, but I also would really like to expand on the work that I have done at Opera Omaha and continue that, and continue breaking that stereotype and that stigma in other places.
Wow, very good. And Lauren, what is next for Opera Omaha?
Well, we have a lot of events coming up. The beautiful part about the Holland Community Opera Fellowship is there's almost always something that's coming up. And so we have a lot of events in November and December out in the community. And then in February, we'll be back at the Orpheum for Abduction from the Seraglio. And then in March and April, our One Festival is back with the full spectrum of opera programming all over the city of Omaha. So we have a lot coming up, and I highly encourage you to look on our event calendar on our website, because there's always something coming down the pike.
Okay, thank you. And Kurt, what about opera in America? I mean, obviously here in Omaha, we're seeing it, progress in terms of going out into the community. What do you see, just broad strokes, in terms of opera?
Certainly. Fortunately, with Opera Omaha, we're sort of at the leading edge of this initiative that's happening across America, which is still holding true the grand spectacle of a big opera on stage at an Orpheum-like theater, but also it's thriving with more composers, women, people of color, people who don't look like me. Their voices are being heard on the opera stage. There are a lot of small opera companies being formed by artists and performers that are just looking to connect with the art in their community. But it's becoming much more community-based, telling stories relevant to the community or co-created with the community. And it's being performed in new ways. There are being created serial operas being released on the web, so you get one episode at a time of the story. There are operas being composed for alternate reality headsets. And virtual reality headsets. So the idea that you can begin to experience in many different ways, rather than necessarily sitting in a formal seat in a large theater, but pop-ups all over the street, and really thinking in terms of operas all around us. And it's created by people here. It's people created in their communities. It's not touring around the country. Everything we do here at Opera Omaha is created by craftsmen in this community.
So Kate, speak to that in terms of, I mean, you're a young adult, right? Coming into all of this is going to look different for people who are interested in getting into opera. I mean, back in the day, it was one way, right? Now it's just so diversified. Thoughts on that?
Yeah, I think that it's great that it's becoming diversified, and I think also, because of that, my definition and my meaning of opera changes all of the time, and that's really great, because it changes depending on the program I'm doing or the music I'm singing or the people I'm working with. And that's wonderful that it has that ability and that we're starting to do that more because it becomes more relevant for everyone and more approachable for everybody.
Okay, I think I would be remiss. We have 1 minute remaining. Each of your favorite operas and maybe a sentence as to why. I'll start with you, Kurt.
Hamilton. It's an opera.
And
it's sung through. It's a storytelling that's done through real people or images of real people, and I just love the mix of the music within that skit.
okay, thank you, Lauren.
I can't choose a favorite, but I'll tell you, my first opera was singing La Boheme as a student for a free student dress rehearsal at Opera Omaha, and that is what really turned it on for me.
Okay, thank you. And Kate?
Oh, I also can't choose one, but I've recently been very into American opera and English opera. So.
Okay, well, thank you. Very interesting. We're going to go to a graphic now for folks wanting more information about opera in America. They can go to operaamerica.org, meetopera.org, or operaomaha.org. I want to thank all of you for being here today and sharing your time, expertise, and your stories, and to wish you well. Keep doing what you're doing, especially in the community.
Thank you
Thanks so
much.
much.
Thank you.
I want to thank our students who are working so hard behind the scenes, and of course our viewers for watching. As we close, a look at vintage arcade games as seen through the lens of Greg Stotskowitz, a junior here at UNO. We'll see you next week.
Consider This is an issues and information program produced by UNO Television. More information and program archives can be found at netnebraska.org/Consider This. If you'd like to share your comments about this program, call UNO Television at 402-554-2516 during regular business hours, or send an email to cwyatt@unomaha.edu.
Support for Consider This is provided by Sequent Planning, an SEC-registered investment advisor, helping people make informed retirement income decisions. Additional information is available at sequentomaha.com.